Hi, and welcome to 2021 at the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. You know, we got new sounds thanks to my producer, Jay. DJ Jay.
What's up?
I love it. I mean, it's getting me pumped up. You know, waiting to start a new year. So let me tell you where we're going with the 2021 season 2. We had last season, we had a lot of extraordinary guests, and we really didn't get a feel on where we was going. It was just introducing guests with tremendous stories. 2021 is a little bit different. We're going to understand several topics going into this season, and one of the things that we're going to talk about is your why you here, what's your purpose? How do you stay in that beast frame of mind? And we're going to talk to people that are still doing it, that still know their reason why, and still carrying that beast mentality. And more importantly, knowing that this is a time for change. Like the great late Sam Cooke said, a change is going to come. At the Andre The Beast show, that's what this is about in 2021. A change is going to come. And it's going to come with me bringing you informative guests, informative topics, and letting you know that you have to be the first one to cause change. With that said, we did a series last season called The Expendables. And like I said, as I say it again, don't take that word lightly. Expendables doesn't mean that you're throwing people out or you're throwing things out. It means we're reinventing, or they still doing it to this day. I'm trying to think how to introduce this next guest, because trust me, look at these arms. Now, I showed him how to get these arms, so don't be fooled by what you see. This is one of his inventions that he made, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But look at the form, look at the arms on this guy. Just total phenomenal. Now remember, I trained him, so those arms didn't come just naturally.
He's laughing at you when you say that.
I know. I know. Ladies and gentlemen, in studio by way of Florida, the U, Miami, anything South Beach, 5-time Mr. Olympia, one of the greatest bodybuilders of all times, Mr. Quiet Storm himself, Vince Taylor. Vince, what's up, dog?
Started showing a woman on stage there. Facebook autoplay.
Good morning.
Hey, what's up?
Intro like that, I'm feeling blessed now, man. This is awesome. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Hey, you know what? You're feeling blessed. I'm feeling blessed. Jay, you feeling blessed?
I'm feeling blessed, brother.
All right, then that's all good. You know, we just saw a great video, and man, you're still looking great. We won't even go with the age, but you're still looking great, pumping up weights and new inventions, and you know, we're going to get into straight up real talk. You got into bodybuilding. I'm a guess about the same age I did. What, 19 years old? Tell the viewers how you got into the sport, and then we're going to just wing it from that moment on.
Sounds good. I actually started bodybuilding, man, at the age of 27.
Wow. Okay.
I liked bodybuilding when I was in teenager mode, but you know, that was just part of the field. I actually started when I was living in Berlin, Germany, playing basketball like I would normally do on the weekends at the American facilities.
Right.
But one day I saw some people walking upstairs, man. I went up to the weight room. It's like, wow, this is pretty cool. I like to do some weight. Met a couple brothers one from South Florida, okay, one from Columbia, South Carolina, my man Ron Emmons.
Right.
Man, he was an MP. Dude was awesome, natural bodybuilder, had that chest on him. And I saw him working out. I'm like, man, I'm going to get rid of this on weekends.
Right.
Some muscles. I hooked up with that brother, man. That's where I started, Berlin, Germany. Man, 27 years old.
So what took you to Berlin, Germany? I mean, you definitely was born in the United States, but what took you to the path to Berlin, Germany? Because I know when I started my bodybuilding journey, naturally, you was one of those icons. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Arnold and the Lou Ferrinos, but the bottom line is I still have to look at my peers, and you was definitely one of them. But what led you to go to Berlin, Germany from the United States?
Well, I had just got out of high school when I graduated in 84. 74, I'm sorry, 74. And I was trying to go to college down in North Carolina, Durham, North Carolina, actually, trying to get down there on a little, seek out some education. That didn't work out too well. So living in Maryland, outside of Baltimore, I was corresponding with my brother, who was also in the service at the time.
Right.
And he was in Germany, in Berlin. Over the summer, man, I had said to myself, I wrote him, and he was like, man, you got to come over here and visit. I'm like, wow, let's try that.
Right.
And 19 years old, haven't left too many places in Maryland at all. Got on that plane, Pan Am, man, hit the skies, for friendly skies to Berlin. Saw everything open up from the moment I got on that plane to the time I met my brother at the airport, and spent 21 days inside of Berlin behind the Iron Curtain.
Right.
Mind you, this is 1970s.
So the wall was still up. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So what did you see that was?
Still up.
What did you see that was different at 19 years old, knowing that wall was still up? I mean, you got a first inside view. What was your impression coming from United States to a situation that two people are trying to come at terms with one another and be able to coexist?
There you go. That's a beautiful question, man, because that was the essence of my arrival, pretty much. My brother, prior to me going there, he would call, well, we would talk sometime. He would be like, it's crazy over here, man. You got these Russians going around, and you can't go here. You're behind the wall. You need flag orders and different orders to get outside the box. And look, the wall's so high, they got to pipe music in back here, And
right.
I'm like, it's like crazy, and had me on edge as far as going to Germany. But I got to resent, because one thing about that whole history, I've been a follower of that history of Germany.
Right.
From Hitler up until, and to find myself in that atmosphere with all that history. I mean, it was a place to be for me. It was so exciting because it was so challenging from day one. When I'm there, I didn't know what to expect.
My
brother told me.
Were you scared? Was any moment in your life, were there certain obstacles that you was literally afraid of that your brother said, look, let me pull you to the side? These are things that you, as an African American, in this situation, this is what you need to first be aware of. Were there certain precautions that your brother pulled you to the side and said, look, this is what you got to do first?
Well, he did that on my request to return back to Berlin.
Okay.
Prior to that, we had that 21-day vacation.
Right.
And let me tell you, from the stories he told me flying over there, and by the time I got there, vividly I recall flying in over the airport, seeing all these gray roofs, dolls. It was in the November, it was the July, August time frame, I believe.
Right.
And it was like fall. So it was like musty, eerie, the way he described it to me, the cloak and daggerness of this place. I was like, I didn't know what to expect from Berlin.
Right.
Until I got there. I'm already huddled around the American complex where he was living on quarters.
Right.
So when I had an opportunity to go downtown and just actually see Germany the first time, and like 3 days later, I recall this trip. We got in the underground. We went downtown to the downtown Berlin, under the Kurfürstendamm. Man, when we came up from the underground and right in the center of the city, I was told, and what I was expecting to see from Berlin was a lot of, communists, or a lot of just mythic stuff. I came up that escalator. Right. And all I saw was neon signs. It looked like I was in New York. I saw cafes that stretched along the city blocks, models. I saw vehicles, you name it. There was plush vehicles all over the place. Beautiful people. It looked like it was just a fashion center of the world. Coming from what my brother was telling me when I got to Berlin.
Right.
Then what I saw was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And it was just an experience, man. It was just something I never expected. And it was, oh wow, something I just had to stay with.
So
20 days was amazing.
You didn't see all the way it was portrayed. You didn't see all the people walking around with guns and just throwing bottles. There was actually a beautiful side to your trip over there, and that's probably one of the reasons why you stayed over there, because it wasn't what was portrayed.
So I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, what I saw there when I got there, what I came to learn quickly was it was all the status of forces country. The French, the Brits, and the American forces. So the Allies. That city was the safest city you want to be in on earth, pretty much.
Really?
Because carrying a gun, Germans didn't play that.
Huh.
You carry a knife, they will beat you down with a knife. So, I mean, no. It wasn't all that scared about anything, because this place was secure.
So, Vince, let's talk about your family. And I know where I'm about ready to go with this. When I was in high school, let me give you a little trail. When I was in high school, I was a track and field runner. Actually, state track and field runner. And when social media surfaced, and you haven't seen your high school and college friends in forever. New generation, new time, and they see you, and they go, "Wow, you're a professional bodybuilder." And I tell people, I said the most tripped out part about that journey was it was a tripped out journey for me. I actually went to the Olympic trials and got injured, got into, like you said, I met a guy, and he's like, "Hey, man, you got genetics. Why don't you do this?" My first indication, can I make money? I was like, can I make some money doing this? He's like, yeah, So now you move forward, and people see you, and I'm the guy that got an elf in weightlifting. Seriously, only elf I've ever had in my life was in weightlifting, and now this is what I do for a living. So with that said, how did your family gravitate, not your kids, we'll talk about that in a minute, how did your inner circle family gravitate to all of a sudden you decided to go into the bodybuilding career, and not only go into it, but thrive at it and achieving 5 Mr. Olympias? And let's talk about that, because people don't understand what determination and what prestige that Olympia championship means. Take us down that journey real quick.
Even starting from the beginning with the family, when I got into bodybuilding, like I said, in Germany, well into my 20s, my mother played a huge role in that, because, man, bless her soul, man, she passed on a while ago. But being able to have her tell me stories about people calling the house when I won the national championships,
right?
Called all around the country, world, actually, can I speak to Vince Taylor? It was such a platform for her. She wanted to take on my manager spot, in America. So I'm like, okay, that'd be cool, Mom. My mom was one of those. She was a saint, man. She talked to everybody, man. I mean, wow. I can't say too much more about moms. But they gravitated to what I did, because it was just something that was a highlight. Hey, Buck, your son is doing this, and look, he won the show. Well, she had a fear of flying,
right?
Okay, in elevators, for example. And when I found out that I wanted to do this, one of my major goals was to be Mr. America. That was the very first thing,
right?
From the day one, 13 or 14, when I saw the Three Stooges on TV, Sunday matinee, Hercules and the Three Stooges. When I saw that, I wanted to be Hercules. That's when my mind came together way back then. So you speed that up from 13 years old to 27, and now I'm ready to go on stage, and I'm going to compete for the Mr. America contest in Atlantic City.
Okay. So
my mom, she was like, "Oh, I want to go. Got to be there." So she traveled to Atlantic City. I won the show. I won the Mr. America. My mom and dad were so proud. And the biggest thrill I got was she got on that elevator at the Showboat Hotel in Atlantic City and came up to the 10th floor, and because she would never get on the elevator.
Right.
She rode on with me, Dad, and the trophy.
Right.
The whole way she was just praying. But it was just a beautiful thing. She was involved in that because she loved the conversations that people were calling the home about.
Right.
She would handle that if I was back in Germany. Dad, he was just as proud as he wanted to be. He used to box back in the day, and
was he Golden Gloves? Was he Golden Gloves?
Not Dad. He back in the 40s, I guess, when he was over there in the Army doing his things. But my older brother in the military, now he was Golden Gloves.
Okay.
He was all USTRA, all AFC, all that. That was his whole thing in the Army.
Okay.
He was CD, Special Detachment for boxing and stuff like that.
Right.
So that type of, and of course he was an athlete.
Right.
I think in high school, he ran track, football, fastest ever. But for me and bodybuilding, that brought my dad in. They were just happy to see me doing something. I mean, the joy of them going to the supermarket.
Right.
And Mom was telling the magazine, your son's pictures on them covered over there. And Dad would say, man, I just put my chest out. I feel so proud. That's your son. That's your son. And that was a driving point for me.
Right. Right.
To have them so fulfilled with so much pleasure.
Right.
Seeing that they felt great about it. That was steam for me to want to continue to do it on, to have them in that type of receptive limelight. It was something to behold.
I can hear by your voice, mothers are definitely those that apple pie that the sons and the daughters want to shine. So how much of an impact was she, God rest her soul, how much of an impact was she to you and your career and moving forward to this day? How much of her is still in you? It has to be a lot.
Total. Mom embedded in us from childhood on, man, how to treat people, what to expect from yourself in life. Her biggest thing was you can kill a person with a smile. You don't have to be angry.
Yeah.
She was just that person, from the local church. Everybody knew my mom. Mom would help you. Oh my gosh. I mean, she was just such a pillar of that type of humanity and love. It's just amazing, man. So those values that she instilled in us about being kind, being thoughtful, being just obeying God and just trying to be respectful, and those things go a long way. I heard she had one little thing. My mom's like 5'5", 5'4", and she would always say, "I'm a small potato, but I'm hard to peel." That's my mom.
I like that saying. So your brother, you now he has to have some type of impact on you, because my brother went to the both of my brothers went to the military, and I remember when my brother went to the Marines. I raised my baby brother, and he went to the Marines, and his first phone call, this was really touching to me. His first phone call that they let you make in the Marines was to me, and I remember him it sounded like he was crying. He said, "I want to come home." And as a older brother and a father figure, because we lost our parents, I didn't know what to say or do. And I remember saying, "You know what? You're going to be all right. You're gonna triumph through this." And he went to Desert Storm, and I remember him coming home at 20-some years old, a sergeant, and people were saluting him and stuff. And I'm like, "Dude, what's up with this?" He said, "Dude, I'm a sergeant." I was like, "Okay." So the part of me that was really proud, I was even more proud of that he went to the service and he came back a man. So your brother, tell me about his impact to you growing up, taking you to Berlin, and does he still navigate your career to so to speak?
Wow, that was awesome. Yeah, my brother passed away too shortly after my mom a few years ago from cancer. That was something that was crazy. Still that's a void that you never,
Right.
But again, I looked up to my brother because he was that it. I guess all little brothers and the older brother. I watched him in high school do the things he tried to emulate, some of the things he did. Stories, I'm trying to go on first newspaper routes with him and when he was little.
I know.
I'm walking out there, it's super cold in Maryland, man. And
yeah.
I have my little tennis shoes on, and my feet got so frozen. 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to get from one corner to the next.
Yeah.
And I'm out here. I can literally see him now, picking me up on his back, carrying me through the snow, trying to get me back home, warm me up, because it was to be out there. But I wanted to be there. He kept telling me, "I told you, don't come out here. I told you." So it was just that persistence of him that was always there. And then shortly after that, I think he kind of went to join the Army.
Right.
So then we had that distance relationship,
Right.
But from growing up, he was there, not all the time, but most of the time.
Right.
But when I was able to get back with him that deeply, I think is when his advice came to me, looking out for me, was when I was in Berlin, when he did show me around it, everything. My decision 20 days later, after about going back over there, and I didn't care if I had to join the Army to go back to Berlin.
You was going.
Back over there. I had such a great time, right? When I was going over, that's the call I got from him. He says, dude, don't come over here. I'm leaving next week. Okay, I'm leaving here. My time is up. You're coming over here to this is not a vacation anymore.
Right.
You were blown away on your vacation, but this ain't for you over here, man.
Right.
But for me, he was dead wrong, because I wanted to go and I went. But that was his thing to me, don't come over here, Bob.
When you became professional, what was your brother's thought process now? Because now you're a grown man. You learned, you took their advice, you've achieved, you rose. Now what?
Exactly.
Now what happens? What's the impact of family now?
Him particularly, it was because he was still stationed. He was still in the Army, moving around different locations. I'm there now in Berlin permanently.
Right.
For where I saw it. So we didn't have that type of conversation anymore. This was that meeting during the vacation era. I went back, he came back over this way. So that, life begins. So
right.
I'm pretty much on my own, learning, growing up in a foreign country, getting my legs under me. As you said, I'm only 20 years old at the time.
A lot of viewers don't know. I think we talked about this before we went on to the tape in here. Every time I saw you in the muscle magazines, a lot of times you were overseas. What was it that was so different with you doing your training and your lifestyle? Your career is a professional bodybuilder, and a lot of people don't understand that. As a professional bodybuilder, we kind of make our calendars, so to speak.
Right.
We dictate what shows we want to do, and we work around that. And I'm pretty sure you had another job outside of that. So tell me what was your life as well as being a professional bodybuilder, because a lot of people think being a bodybuilder, we'll talk about that. A lot of people think that bodybuilding, because you're a professional athlete, don't mean you make millions of dollars. So we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But you're overseas. I'm seeing the magazines, and I noticed every time, your contact information came up, even back then, we didn't have social media people. We had a magazine. The contact was Germany or whatever. What was your life over there? What were you doing over there, and what made that lifestyle different than you transitioning it back to the United States?
Good question. There was life itself. When I got past that experience of going over there to Berlin for that vacation, and then I found out I wanted to stay over there, going back over there, and that's a whole different world.
Right.
Okay, this is like, what are you doing now? So I went back over there trying to, it's funny I see it today, because now it was like an immigration status to stay there versus a U.S. passport is the key around the world, get you anywhere.
Right.
So I'm taking a freedom that's such with my passport and American citizenship. I'm going to a country where now I got to have a visa to stay and work. Okay. So it became a little different approach as far as life itself.
Right.
Right. So now I'm over there, can't speak the language. I'm looking for employment to stay over there, because those was the things. You got to show you got employment if you want to stay longer. But now you got to be able to incorporate yourself in this European community, especially Germany. You got to speak the language, do some work. And, this is none of my attributes. Okay? I'm just 19 years old. I'm over here looking for a place to stay.
Right.
So I was able to get a job, try to get a job on the German economy, But again, that was one of those 3 months tourist visa type situations. Being around the military, then it was AFES, armed forces, and then armed forces itself. Okay. So I was able to get a job at the local PX area where I was working at the service station, And then that's a flip back from where I'm at, leaving America, going to Germany. It's like, All right, you just graduated from high school. You got you, and now you're going over to another country. You're starting your life and stuff. And the first job you're gonna get is working at a gas station. I mean, go figure that. You put in 12 years of high school to go work. Yes, that was at the American sector.
Right.
So I was around all the Americans because, again, being over there, not in the Army, I'm living on the economy.
Right.
Know?
Right.
And now I don't even know what this city looks like, transportation-wise. I'm just learning that 20 days ago.
Right.
But my point is, I'm off in the economy in a world you don't speak the language, which is so thrilling at one moment. Because I will walk into a room and be just Germans. Okay,
Right.
so you're done.
Right.
You can turn around for 360, and all you're going to speak is German, and whether you know it or
Right.
not. Now, 20 minutes away, if I get on the transportation system and go down to the American sector, now I'm around mini America. I'm around the base and everything else. So if you can live in that area, in that sector, that would have been good. I live outside that sector. So there's hours of the day where I'm totally Americanized. And as soon as I got on that bus or that underground system to go back home, I'm in a world that if I just closed my eyes, I would know where I was. Couldn't nobody talk to me because they don't speak my English. And nobody's reaching out. This is Germany.
At 19 years
that
old,
kind of back and forth was exciting, man.
At 19 years old, was there any fear? Was there any fear at 19? Was there any fears at 19 years old? You're now on your own, and you just said, you're here. You hear me personally.
Those were the fears.
Yeah,
but that's what the challenging part. Right?
Okay.
Because, like I said, I know I can get on this bus right now, and nobody will know anything about me. Won't say anything about me. I can't get no help. I can't ask. But at the next second, I can turn that around. So instead, things happen. You know what it would take. So, just coming into that environment, man, learning that whole community and system, it was just growing up. Just growing up.
With that said, let me spin it this way. You had a lot of role models, a lot of experience, a lot of stuff that 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds don't get a chance to experience, especially during the time that we grew up. To go overseas and live and do what you did, that's awesome. Now, you're back in the United States. You're a professional bodybuilder. We'll get into the bodybuilding career towards the end. Now, you got a family of your own. Tell me what that's like. Now you're trying to instill in them the same values in a time where things aren't the same. They don't go outside and play like we did. They have the internet. The world is now at the touch of a button. Values aren't the same because accessibility becomes effortless. And when you have effortless things, you forget the traits and values that generations before had to do to get to where they're at today. How did you deal with your family now? And you definitely raised some great kids. Tell me about that. I got you going all kind of ways on her.
Yeah, I don't usually. You start recouping things that made you where you go today and made you what you are today. I look back at as my young family and my wife. When I met her in Berlin, and I finally got it together enough to make sense. It says my era in Berlin, time wise, was coming to an end.
Right.
I'm living it, I'm feeling it. So now I'm coming back home. And the young lady that I met at the time there as well, in Germany, my wife today, Randy, or Veranda, it was amazing because now you're finding compatibility. And when I came back home, and she joined me shortly afterwards, and then we had our first son, Vince Jr. He's 27 right now. And then 2 years later, we had Isaiah.
Okay.
It was just the fact of rearing, from the understanding of myself, her involvement in everything, it molded our family tree of education and upbringing. So I lean heavily on the fact of what my morals were versus in association with hers. And together we reared, we nurtured, we brought forth, our kids in the best manner we could. So it was just dealing with just the everyday assembly of life here,
Right.
She too was also living in Germany. Her mom's German father. He had passed away years before, a young age, 40 years old. So it was just, two people living, learning each other, rearing a family, and then dealing with your immediate situations.
Right.
So what we brought along from our upbringings was just cultivated and directionally, for our kids. And they came out great because of it was just being that one magical word, you want to be respectful.
Right.
You want to be respect,
right.
And that's what we try to install in our kids. And from that small little seed of growth and the direction and values, I mean, they just bloomed up prosperous. I mean, I'm so proud of my boys. It's just, and the word and the signature to that is when you have people talk to you about your kids.
Yeah.
I see myself, as we're talking how we grew up.
Right.
I see myself when I moved down here and how the young kids were talking to me at the time. This is 1992, 1993.
Right.
How hey, Vince, how you doing? Vince, hey, if you owe to me, it's sir. It's
right.
ma'am.
Mister.
How old you are. I mean, that's how I was brought up to instill, right?
Right.
So when these kids around there would come to me like that, sometimes I caught myself not speaking to them because that's what it's respect.
Right.
But my kids, they got that. They understood that. And that was kind of like the only rule of thumb that made the most sense.
Right.
You get that, you get virtue.
Your kids recognize you as a professional bodybuilder. And somebody asked me, this is a true story, Vince. I don't have none of my trophies. And I used to do 15 to 20 shows a year, which was pretty much unheard of. But I knew how to diet and so forth, so on. But when I got older, and I realized a lot of things, when you get older, you look at life totally different.
You do. And
I looked, and every time I would move to another apartment or a house or whatever, I had to carry your trophy room. You got one at your house. And we all do. And I got to looking, I said, man, half of the truck is trophies. So I remember going, you know what? I took the name badges off and I just threw them in the trash. And somebody asked me a question. They said, why don't you give them to your kids? And I thought about that for a minute. And I said, you know what? They got their own life, their own journeys. If they choose to follow my footsteps, I'm happy. But they may not want to do what I did, but at least I left that legacy for them to go. Now you got your sons. We'll get into them in a minute because it's all about the you. We'll talk about that in a minute. How did they feel growing up knowing that their father was a professional athlete, bodybuilder, which is a very different kind of sport? A lot of people don't understand. It's a very different kind of sport. And you're being judged by people, but you're competing against other individuals. So it's not like football or basketball. You put in what you put out, and everybody gets on that stage, feels like they put 100%. But at the end of the day, it's only first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So now your kids are looking at you. How did they look at their superhero? I'm getting you coming. Look, I got my gun.
Yeah, you throwing them at me. It's funny because I had to laugh when one of the best examples of that was like people would ask my kids, and I would hear the answer. Well, what's your dad do? My dad's on stage with what did my son say? With drawers on. It's about women underwear. I think he said women underwear. they like, I guess they were brought more into it even younger as they were growing up in it when I would have them at the events, because that was my thing. I wanted my family there, win or lose. This is what we were doing as a unit. Because I was winning, it was just that much better, and all the characteristics of winning and people coming up to you all the time. Everybody want to take pictures. And over the years, we would be eating someplace, right? And people come up to the table, want some pictures and autographs and stuff like that. And to me, that was just bugging me from Jump Street, because I'm like, I ain't no better than you. You want my picture?
Right.
Then she just won the nationals.
Right.
Well, that's okay. That's a show, but we cool, You want my picture? It was just something. Oh wow, that portion of it. I was glad that they saw that. Right. They saw all the benefits, negativity.
Right.
You know, because when they saw people who don't like you or say certain things because of how you look, for example, and they were old enough to get that,
Right.
you know. So for them, it was really cool. No pressures at all, I don't believe, because Isaiah, personally, he was a track guy, you know. My other son, Vince, he wasn't really into a lot of athletics because he had a knee issue,
Okay.
you know. He had almost not hereditary, but I recall growing up, my knees were almost as if my patella felt like I could move it around. So
Right.
my knee felt like it always would shift. This
Right.
was back in high school.
Right.
So my son had pretty much the same problem, you know. So he didn't get too much involved in sports. But where Isaiah came along, athletic as well, he played some sports, little football. Track was his love. So undoubtedly, you know, he did extremely well in track. Followed their own footsteps.
Okay. Yeah.
He was seeing his applause when he was, you know, state champ, district champ, city champ. You know, he won it. You know what I mean? So living through that with him, I could see how he was having his experiences with me, because I had every experience with him, watching him run at 100 meters,
Right.
200, 4x1. Whoa. You thought I was out there running with them, man. It's just that type of involvement, right?
Right.
And my wife the same way. She's a track star running in Germany.
Right.
Again, she's born and raised in Alaska. Her
Alaska.
parents lived in Germany, in Berlin.
Okay.
That's where I met them. Her father, they stayed in Germany. And that's when we met up. But she, by right, she was fast.
Right.
I mean, she didn't lose a race, I heard, you know, in her high school years and stuff like that there. So I know where Isaiah got his speed from.
Genetics. Genetics. You went from, you're born and raised Maryland. You're born and raised Maryland. But you're down in Miami. You're in Coral Beach. Tell me about the University of Miami to you. You know, we're representing the orange. You got the shirts on. What led you to go there? Why did you pick the destination of Miami?
Okay, that was an easy one because I had just won the Night of the Champions.
I remember that show.
89. So my question was, okay, that's your first pro show. Now you're professional, and now we asked earlier about that career.
Right.
The move was unique, but do you know that bodybuilding is USA? So
Right.
pretty much, I had the dilemma living in Germany at the time and just turning professional in 1989. It was like, okay, to get the work that I wanted, the promoters were hiring me from America, which of course I had my mom in the middle. You know, she knows about all this stuff. This is my man. So she's arranging stuff for me there. This is new to us, right?
Right.
So I'm in Berlin, and mom arranges some stuff. I fly back home, knock them out, fly back to Germany. So then the money that you were making, the money I was making in Berlin as a regular civilian, just working at the gas station, I would leave that position a few years into it, 86, 87, and I would work at an indoor firing range, which is known as it's a political area in Berlin. It's the Doughboy City. You know, that was the urban fighting city.
Right.
You know, which again, Berlin's a political place, man, for that era and that time frame. So at this training facilities, I was a specialist to show military companies or soldiers as well indoor firing techniques. Okay, as a weapons specialist.
Right.
So that involved itself into the evaluation of the Army's artillery, Army's ability to bring in new weapon systems, stuff like that. So this firing range turned into a computerized firing range, which turned into a maximization firing range that incorporated all the battle military. We had military cannons, we had RTAPs, we had all kinds of training mechanisms. So basically, I was involved in that. So if you take this training area, Parks Range was one of the areas we worked at. Firing range, I was almost Doughboy City.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody ever does any history on the Doughboy City, you know the Doughboy and what that means. So urban fighting was early there. Urban fighting is the thing nowadays.
Right.
And that's where I was at, controlling areas like that. So that technician-wise, I'm a weapons specialist. Also now I'm a new bodybuilder. So the money I'm making on a regular versus what I was made on the show made you say, wow, bodybuilding will pay off.
Right.
I think I'm in the bodybuilding to change my life.
Right.
That was the goal. Change my life through bodybuilding.
Okay.
And that's why it was, okay, you can stay in Germany or you can go to America.
Right.
Bodybuilding capital is California.
Right.
But there's earthquakes in California. I ain't thinking about that. But then Florida, I went down to see the Nationals in Florida. Fell in love with it. I'm like, I'm going to Florida. So about 6 months later, I decided we're going to move to Florida, baby.
Was she
took care of my Muscle Beach.
Was she like down with that? I mean, was there any hesitation?
No, not at all. It was just, I was so excited about going to number one. And when I asked my wife to join me, well, my girlfriend at the time, like, hey, we'll start a new life together. Let's move back to America. She had her hesitations. I've been in Germany most of my life as well, her life included. And now it's like, well, I'm going to follow you. I'm looking for the best out. I know I wasn't going back to Maryland. That was number one. I was going back to one horse town in Harvey Grace, Maryland. And I wasn't. California was kind of. New York was like, I don't know about New York.
Right.
Hey, Florida was the spot, and it was the best choice.
Let's talk about your bodybuilding career before we wrap up. I got to ask this. There's so many great bodybuilders, and a lot of people don't know. There's not that much difference between first, second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Yeah.
It's usually just it's really stupid. It's a point is what it is. Somebody might have felt the discretion of the judge. Some judge might have said you're not big enough. This judge might say you're not conditioned enough. It's political, but outside of the political stand, we'll get into that in a minute. Out of all the guys you competed against, who was the one guy that just you look at yourself and you go, damn, that motherfucker was like really hard to beat?
Oh man, just about all of them. I never considered myself gunning, for example, for anyone, because the stage is already set. When you get to that show, somebody's already won it.
Right.
His history's won it. So when I popped up, it was Lee Haney.
Right.
It's like, man, you ain't gonna beat that dude. I don't care how many Coca-Colas you drink or protein bars you eat. You ain't gonna beat that. Became a whole new different game for me. So I never had a target on anybody,
right,
or anybody I thought I could win. It was just like, if you won a show and all those accolades came with it, right? There's a magazine, right? There's the people. There's some money right on that spot,
Right.
That something was pretty, that was pretty appetizing. Right. So I'm all for that.
Right.
And as long as I could win, that was cool. But then you noticed when you got into bodybuilding, then you start seeing what it's like.
Behind the
guy
scenes.
who won the show last week made you a pro.
Right.
Now this is what pro bodybuilding is about. And that's not a pretty picture, because behind all the smiles and the sweats and glams, it's like when that show is over, how much money did you win for the very purpose of your survival?
Right.
You need to make money.
Right.
What is the business aspect of bodybuilding? That's the eye opener.
And we talked about that, the business side of that, and you're kind of right. We at that time, I guess we all was blinded by the magazines and what was offered. But then when you got older and you looked at it and you go, wow, okay, well, it cost me this amount of money for gas. My food cost me this amount, but the paycheck is $10,000, but if I don't win, I don't get shit. And I'm a pro. So I mean,
that was the real reality.
Yeah. It's kind of like knowing what we know now. Would we had chose a different thing, or do you look at it and go, well, damn, you know what? They started an organization and they got fat. We didn't get fat, they got fat.
Exactly right.
You didn't healthcare. If you had to change something now, like say for instance, your grandkids come up and they see your pictures and they go, I want to do this. What kind of advice would you tell them now? Because clearly the organization, I don't believe that it's changed. I believe it's still the same concept. I mean,
same people are there.
Yeah, the same people are there. So when do other people's eyes really open up and say, do I really? Because now look at it. Every social media that you see, every female, now it's really becoming a female sport, because
It's more money in it.
It's more money. Okay, well, you look good in a swimsuit. Oh, you got potential, So now it's all over the thing. But there's a bigger political side of this that people need to understand, that individuals like you didn't get a retirement plan. You had to basically go out now and reinvent what you thought was going to be your career. Tell me about that.
Yeah, and you find that easily. You'll find that out if you're smart enough. And that's what I tell most people nowadays, so I can look back and say this. When you notice that you didn't win that show, when you notice what your status is the day after, what your money status is, what your expectations of future in the sport, look, competition you got yourself involved in, that's a checkbox. Right. You need to check that box right now as a warning sign.
Right.
Because what you receive right there, it won't change unless you change it. That's by one, winning or finding other ways to generate money by what you are doing.
Right.
Okay. Because if you're thinking this bodybuilding is going to give you the money to survive, you don't know about the traps in it. That's the thing about it. Because what you see is that, man, this guy won Arnold Class $1,000. It's like, wow. I look at that nowadays and go, I won the Arnold Classic. I won $60,000.
Right.
Now, that's if you won. But if you didn't win that show, now you're getting the third of that. The guys who came in 5 through 10, it's like, why are you even bodybuilding?
Right.
And that's the reality of the sport. Even now, it never changed because the top 3 are the ones going to make some money.
Right.
To be saying I'm in this thing. After that, man, you better find some kind of make things happen. Reinvent yourself through different avenues to get that attention of what you do, but to make your way through. Me personally was, man, if I don't win the show, then me guest posting. Let me go out here and find that money. Right. I remember Sean Ray and I spoke about that way back in the day. He had told me too. He said, Vince, you don't make no money on stage. You make your money off the stage.
And he's doing phenomenal. He's one of the bodybuilders I'm trying to get on the show because he was one of those brothers that are bodybuilders and brother that you saw that his mindset was far beyond there. He knew what he was going to get from them because he saw the political stance. I followed his career. Well, your back's not big enough, so he gets his back big enough. Well, you're not big enough here. You're not big enough here. And he probably, I'm not speaking for him, but if I was him at that time, I'm like, okay, well, what the fuck can I do to make money then? Because you ain't giving it to me. You're knocking me down every time I get on stage. And now he's doing all kind of things, and we had a couple other bodybuilders on here that have reinvented themselves. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the sport. The sport is great, but it's kind of like as you get older, you realize it wasn't the cake that you thought it would be. There came a lot of strings that, as it untethered, you go, wow, and you now have to rethink yourself. You've done that on the rethinking yourself, and I think we just showed that clip. Tell me about this new product, and let me explain why I like this product, people. I do personal training, and I got injured, so this might lead into your product. I got injured. I got chemical burnt, and my whole fingers and stuff were like this, and I had to go through extensive rehab, and they was like, you'll never be able to lift weights again. And I was like, man, this is like, okay, what do I do? And so I went in the gym, and I took a bar, and I didn't put no weight on it because I couldn't close it. My hands were literally sweat. And I started lifting like this with no grip. And I said, man, I'm really feeling my muscles engaging like I've never felt before. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to start doing this in all my basic movements, but I'm not going to use any weights. I'm going to just use the apparatus and start to feel an open grip concept. And I saw the transformation happen. And then I was able to get stronger. I was able to add weight, resistance. But on top of that, the most important thing was not necessarily being able to add on the weight to add resistance, but I was able to isolate muscle groups in ways that I've never done before. I realized I didn't need a lot of weight to make muscle engagement happen or muscle growth happen. And I was like, this is phenomenal. So I started doing what is called a thumbless grip. But you came up with something that's even better than that. That's based on the same concept. The Vince grips.
Right.
Tell me about that, Vince.
Vince Taylor grips, which I called the bag. Shot him right there, baby.
I love them.
That's the website, man. The grips themselves was an engineered concept, an idea that just took advantage of a natural occurrence, right?
Right.
I had, like you, suffered something that put me in a position to have those signs jump right out at you.
Right.
Muscle isolation, muscle contraction. I tore and fell off a ladder on my roof trying to change some security lights in my home. And as I was getting off the ladder, shortly before the Mr. Olympia contest, and as I was getting off the ladder, I spun around and go back down. And man, that ladder just slid right down from under me. So I'm grabbing the top of my garage and just, boom, 240 pounds hitting that concrete.
Wow.
So I braced myself with my arm and wind up tearing my tricep. Now, throughout that injury, it takes me back to in my career, right? When I started bodybuilding in 1984, 1986, 85, 86, I was getting my feet wet. I won a show, Mr. Berlin. I was doing some first-time exhibitions, as a bodybuilder in Germany.
Right.
And went to one event. My idol showed up, John Brown. He was also, the story of him and me in Germany, explains itself. But he showed up that night. I wanted to be on stage with him. First time ever,
right?
So that was great. I'm backstage, warm to go and pose, and the guy called me and said, "Vince, come on, you ready in 2 minutes?" I said, "Okay, I'm happy." I don't know what. You gotta understand, this is my debut night. I'm guest posing, first time ever. My idol, the greatest pose in the world, John Brown, is already out there doing his thing. So that's the story of that night. I'm out here with my boy, warming up, man, and tore my bicep. Picked up a 7.5 kilo dumbbell, and I did last 10 reps, and next thing I know, I heard this ripping towel sound, and my left body right from the tendon. And I'm sitting back in that back room, and John came off stage and said, "Taylor, what's wrong, man?" And I showed him. I said, "Man, my bicep, I'm just shaking like that,
Yeah.
I was like, he said, "Oh man, Taylor, you tore it." I'm like, "What? What does that mean?" Okay, what does that mean?
It's torn.
So a great friend of mine who happened to be a surgeon, that he was at the show as well.
Right.
So I ran out and got Doc, and he came back behind us and said, "Oh man," he used to call me the Sweden, right? I'm the Sweden because I'm the black German over here. He was
what was
Muslim,
John then?
and we would just laugh all the time. Oh, it was just great. He said, "Man, my brother Vince," he said, you the Sweden." I said, "Okay, I'm the Swede." So, and he came back, he saw my arm, and he said, "Oh my God, Vince, it's crazy. You tore your bicep." I'm like, what does that mean? Because Dre, you gotta understand, I just won Mr. Berlin a few months ago. My bodybuilding career has just started.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Right.
He said, "Listen, we got to operate on that. And you probably finished with bodybuilding. You probably have to go start swimming. Another sport altogether."
That's not what you want to hear.
All that in one night. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a bicep injury, and after they reattached it and everything, he had told me then from a training aspect, he said, "I wanted to see you do exercise like chin-ups, pull-ups, and stuff like that, because this may pull that tendon right out of the forearm that we had to implant. So you may not be able to do bodybuilding anymore, weightlifting, that type.
Right.
But if you did, I wanted you to use cables, because
Okay.
I don't want you to have that much resistance on that muscle and that joint at the time." So,
Right.
Okay, that kind of spurred me to utilizing cables. Understanding now when I use the cables, trying to get back into the bodybuilding, I learned right away that lighter weight and getting the work done, because that was my rehab.
Right.
To get stimulated back. I've had my body in one position. Now that I'm utilizing this lighter weight to try to maintain or get this rehab going on my left arm, I saw how quickly the rehab came about, the quality. And I'm like, okay, you're doing this at a different approach to your normal training with a heavier weights. The correlation is super heavy to make this muscle retain and grow. You need to be thorough in the execution of how you're doing your work.
Right.
So then I started training lighter, using that concept, more contraction, started thinking that way. So my whole philosophy of training became lighter weight training, totally.
Right.
And that's why I think I got they call me today, "Vince Taylor only trains with 20-pound dumbbells." Yeah, right. Why? Because they work. Okay?
Right.
That's what me. So with the grips, and as you mentioned, and what I did was, I was training, doing some tricep extensions on the machine in the gym.
Right.
Machine on the gym, after you see the cable machine hanging off, all you're going to see from the cable is this hanging down, right?
Right.
In the gym, you take the handle off. There's a little ball was on there at the time. So I used to grab that cable like that, and I would train my body parts like normal everybody does, training chest with the cables. Dre, what I did was I had this cable behind my head doing some extension, activate the tricep injury that I had. That was the rehab motion I was doing.
Right.
So I'm engaged in conversation as usual. For some reason, I had the handle behind me. Here we go. I'm going to a different one. Had this handle behind me on the machine. So I took it off. The little ball was there. And I had it between these two fingers as I was talking to someone. And I did my little reps, 10 reps here. And for some reason, I said, well, put it between the middle two fingers, right?
Right.
So when I did the first two, I felt the outer head of my tricep just maximally contract.
Right.
Okay. And then when I put it between the baby two fingers in the middle, I shifted over and I pushed it out again. But wow, the whole resistance jumped to the middle of the tricep, the rear tricep.
Right.
Head. I'm like, this is crazy.
Right.
So the thought pattern was, well, what happens if I put it between my pinky finger and did that same movement? Well, bingo, that tendon that I detached from that fall and I was rehabbing was affected 100% with that finger positioning of that ball between here, that resistance rather, between the finger, here we go, and the ball. I had that bad boy just like this. Let me see if I can get you a picture of that. Wrong
Yeah,
picture.
I can see it.
Okay, I had it just like that, and as I pushed it forward, man, you actually felt the resistance of the weights shifting from the outer head, the middle, to the inner head, and this was the tendon detachment I had in the center here. So I had full activation on that tendon by putting that ball between these two fingers. That was like, wow.
How does that?
This is, I'm rehabbing.
How does that device stimulate other muscle areas? Do you naturally, if you're doing flies, you will have two balls, right? And then vice versa.
So what I did was this is my precision ball. This was designed for that purpose, being able to place that ball between each finger and work in zones. Because what I found out by utilizing that same finger positioning and that ball in this position right here, when I switched my hand over to train my biceps, the curling action, what you would notice is that when you curl back on the bicep training, the two finger fold work the outer head of the bicep.
Okay.
So what I do now, when I have people looking at and watching what I do, I said, picture your bicep divided in 3 zones: the outer, the middle, and the inner. You put this ball in the two fingers like that, like we just saw in the tricep motion. It is going to, as you increase your curling action, it's going to activate tendons, not the tendons, but the fibers in the outer bicep. You will literally feel that section of the fibers in the bicep contract, tighten as you're actually going through your contractions. When you move the ball to the center, you will feel that whole resistance shift right down the center of the bicep. Then you feel that whole resistance shift to the inner side of the bicep when you move it to the pinky finger. So it was like controlling resisting spots in the muscle, particularly the bicep of the tricep, both areas, outer head of the tricep, middle, rear, bicep, outer head of the bicep, inner, middle. You have direct control underneath the skin. This is the beauty of what I'm doing to change the quality of my arm training, okay? Because when you see your muscles being developed, and my word is qualitized, okay? Right. When you're actually training with those, thinking in that perspective, I want to go down this portion of the muscle, or that portion with X amount of reps and X amount of sets, as I would normally do in any training form, any form. Then I can see how I can direct the resistance to the muscle. The beauty of that was my thought pattern: develop the muscle from an earlier stage.
Right.
Don't rely on the heavy weight to create the maximum stimulation that you need. You want to stimulate first naturally. You want to contract that muscle, get those signals firing right away from a natural approach. Once you got those muscles contracted, that's the end of the exercise.
Right.
Think about what you're doing. You grab a barbell or dumbbell, you throw some weights on it. All you're trying to do is contract that muscle. That's the major effort of what we're doing.
It's funny that can you hear me? It's funny that you said that, because now that I'm pretty sure you reminisced on this as well. The technology in the information that we had back then were the bodybuilding encyclopedia, the Arnold Schwarzenegger encyclopedia, and everything was geared around a two-concept training philosophy: basic movements, heavy weight, light weights to cut down. But it's funny now, you don't, and I try to teach my clients this, you don't need a lot of weight to stimulate muscle. You need to understand contraction. So I'm 100% for this product. My question is, this is a complete training apparatus, so you can do the entire body with this particular apparatus that you've developed, correct?
Absolutely. What you got here is a 2021 version of this, okay?
Okay.
Those are the main thing. That's the new era. Your normal band here that everybody uses, you're doing exactly the same thing with my grips. The reason why I believe that these create a better type of training for you, it makes you think more. Because when you put your hand, as you explained earlier, that's the open palm grip, you realize when you have that hand in an open position like that, what you're doing is you're not requesting power in that linear chain of muscle.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You're requesting. All right. Now that power apparatus is the rest of these muscles in that linear chain.
Right.
And we don't need to get to those. All I want to do is put you in the best position to control that weight. But when you figure out that the exercise that you are doing is being dominated by the amount of weight that you're utilizing, because that's where you're getting your plus from.
Right.
When you realize you can do that same exercise, that muscle gonna work the same way.
Right.
By using a different tool that you regulate the amount of resistance that you're going to use, because one, mechanically, you don't engage those forearms, you don't engage the extra lifting. Okay. When the forearms are disengaged, if you're training your shoulders, your chest, your bicep, well, guess what? That resistance that's going to that contraction is going there straight, 100%, and it's going to divert the forearm. You know, you're going to go around that forearm to get to that muscle. So therefore, you're training with resistance from the first time. That muscle, if it's the bicep, you got a 15-pound bicep, you got a closed fist. That means that forearm is going to add to your ability to pull that weight. When that hand is open, there's no resistance there. 15 pounds is going right to that bicep. So with your standard curl, the hand grip, you're pulling up 15, 20 pounds with ease.
Right.
Because that forearm is taking that pressure.
Right.
But with these, the open palm, the deactivation of the forearm, now all you're doing is gripping that resistance, that muscle that you're actually training to pull that 15 pounds now, working by itself. It's working by itself. So now it can't pull that 15, 20 pounds like it used to.
Right.
Because now it doesn't have that forearm helping out. That 15 turned to 5 pounds. And you're getting that stimulation from that muscle. That contraction is there.
Right.
That's where that effect comes from. You're getting that full maximizing contraction with a lighter weight. When I curl nowadays with my grips, of course, I go to the stand. I can grab my dumbbells. I do what I call a dumbbell running rack. I start with 10 pounds.
Right.
I do 8 reps for 10 pounds, 6 pounds. It's the smallest weight on the rack. Every denomination I do 8 reps with, I walk my way up the rack, the high as I can get to, it's 35 or 40. Then after that, I'm going back down. Okay, that's my stimulation set that I would use to work up my arm training exercise.
Right.
I'm not using a heavy dumbbell. I want to progressively add muscle. So when people are training, I want them to understand, look, train with the denominations of the weight and the rep. Give your body ability to amp up for the next dimension of weight. Because you got people who will start with 15 pounds or something and jump right to 30. Okay.
Yeah, I say it all the
Why are
time.
you slapping on 15 extra pounds? Why don't you progressively take this weight up and condition your muscle for training? It's not wrong to do that. It's not right to do that. But for the average person who want to train, needs to work out. The key word is working out, right? So if you're doing 4 sets, work those 4 sets. Don't go maximum. Look, I got to get 12 reps of 55 pounds. I can't even do 20. So I'm killing. This is my training. I'm going hard. You're still doing the same thing at the end of the day. You're still pushing and trying to contract the muscle for an advantage.
Right.
Why not do it a different way?
Right.
Go lighter, but go on the dimensions that gives you a sturdier way of training. Makes it more convenient for the average person to train.
Huh. Vince, how can
so
we?
You got them coming up to train.
How can the viewers get these training techniques and tips? Put a website up, Jay. There we go.
Yeah, the website will give you the product itself. I got some videos on there to show how to use the grips, the concept behind the grips. I talk about, how to choose the right grip, because that's what a lot of people understand. You got 3 different sizes: small, medium, and large ball for your hands. Why, Dre? Because very simple. People's fingers, So
Right.
if you have a custom fit hand ball, a 2-inch ball, I found out, it's almost like throwing a baseball, for the positions that we are utilizing them in, right? It fits for a larger size hand. A 2-inch ball fitting in there is such a comfortable grip, a half moon grip on your finger fold. So it's totally comfortable. That's the first foremost what I try to do with the size. So I go from small, a large, a medium, and small. Now, does it make a difference of the size of the grip you're using? Slightly. It creates the same effectiveness. 90% of that form, number one, is what I want, okay, which makes you rely on more mental and physical contraction besides the weight. But now being able to put it between the finger fold and get the benefit of isolating that one section of the fiber in the muscle, if you train in tricep, bicep, you're going to get that continuously by that open palm grip.
Okay.
The beauty of it is it's going to limit the amount of weight you can use.
Yeah.
You're not going to do a 30-pound curl with these.
Right.
Okay.
And
when you put these on and do a bicep curl for the same purpose you're curling,
right,
you're going to 15-pound curl, maximum 20, without some serious bump. 5 or 10 pounds is going to do the job for you. But people who think they need, I got to go heavy. Well, normally I use a single ball. I want you to break that muscle into the sections, lighter, make it effective happen. But if you need heavy stuff, all I did was double it up. So make your fist grip if you like. You can do the same thing, but you still have that open palm. You just still have as much activation if you squeeze the ball like that, right? So I try to tell people. So now all that conversation is on that website to tell you why these grips fit everybody, because you don't have to worry about the circumference. All of them keeps the finger fold open. The benefit of it is, like you mentioned yourself, I got people who can't even make a fist.
Right.
Therefore, what they look like going to the gym and train.
Right.
I have elderly people with different type of arthritis, hand and problems. Anybody who has some sort of impediment that you can't get beyond, you can't make a fist, you can't do this, you can't write. Look, dude, it's drop this in the finger fold, like you said. You drop it in the finger fold, and you off to the races. Now you can do all the training that's required for somebody to make a fist. You don't have to. You leave it open, and job's done.
And
the
it's
benefits of those.
And it's safe.
What that does is amazing.
And it's safe. Before we wrap,
and they're yours. With this Corona, I was telling people most of the time, listen, these are your personal hand grips. They weigh less than 12 ounces. Less. So all you're doing, you put them in your palm, right? They're durable. You can lift as much weight as you can possibly put on it. I recommend, simply wise, if you're using a single ball, precision ball, understandable word. You want to be precision. You want to be smart about your training. Lighten it up, or in a rehab phase. You want to use the amount of weight that's going to tell you common sense. If this ball in the finger fold position that you have to train with it in,
right,
if it's hurting you, then obviously you training too heavy.
Right.
Okay. Because all you're doing is supposed to hold this in your hand for a connection. This has nothing to do with weight you're pulling. But if it's causing finger issues and problems with your finger, your gripping, change the weight's too heavy. The benefits of it is you're doing finger hand exercise. Healthy hands, man. You don't have to be a football player or a baseball player, but if you are, I'm telling you, this is what you want to do to train your hands. Okay? Because this is what you need, because you're working flexation, contraction, squeezing, grip control, and form development, all of that in that normal method that you use.
Right.
And that resistance to at home. Okay? So you don't have to be training with this for exercise purposes, hand development, rehab development. The benefits of utilizing this type of grip, man.
So it sounds
it's what you make out of it.
It sounds like a great multi-purpose exercise machine device to use. And you mentioned something about the pandemic, and you're right. We need to find ways to stay healthy. This is clearly a device that is able to keep you safe at home and still be able to exercise. My last 2 questions I'm going to ask
sure thing.
Before we go. We've gone through a lot of different things last year, and this 2021 is clearly about progress, moving forward, understanding your why.
Yeah. What's your why?
A change is going to come. Leave the viewers with something motivational that has helped you stay in that beast frame of mind going into the start of 2021, Vince.
Yeah, because it's been trying, these last years, especially politically, and that just affects you physically, mentally. It's super trying with this pandemic and everything else. The sincerity of it, it's called awareness, man. I try to tell people, you gotta, you can't let some of these quick sayings and some of these unfounded accusations, drive you certain directions and certain ways of thinking. There's so much going on out there that affects you on a physical level, and which in turns affect the people immediately around you.
Correct.
So positivity, thinking positive, trying to maintain that goal of do for you what you would do for somebody else. Make sure what you're doing is thorough. But it's you got to show restraint. You got to restraint because some people don't have the same mindset that you have. You look at a situation 100 degrees different than somebody else, and you shake your head and go like, how can this person even think that way?
Right.
But now you can't get caught up in trying to figure that out anymore. It is what it is. So now you sit back and start saying, how do I adapt to the new changes?
Right.
I think this whole pandemic in 2021 is about reevaluating your 6 point on. You can't rely on the things that we went through because that is just the reminder of what the problem is today.
Right.
Things we went through. How do we change mentally, internally? How do we change physically? You got to back up. You got to regroup. You got to start taking that deep breath. You got to find some humidity. Oh man, what's what I'm looking for? I just want people to just, people just got to think, man. You got to put the fist down. You got to back up. You got to start caring more about people and things around you. You can't help everybody, but you can offer some sort of assistance. Don't shell out. Right now, I fear that everybody is just, you're backing up into your own corners now, in every aspect. If it's the jobs, what's not available for you, why you can't get it versus something now. There's a new reason why things are not happening the way they should for you. But you pull back in your own corner, man, and you find yourself fighting that fight. But you got to remember, people around, incorporate, bring people in to fight this thing together. Because, man, especially in a family unit, because with the times now, you find a lot of animosities and tensions throughout the family unit.
Yeah.
The best way to do that is stay positive and stay on that collective conversation, because this 2021, 2022. Woo! I think we in for something on a mental ride.
Right.
So my advice or my motivation, anything, is that you sit down and you take a chronological order of how your life developed. You see everything you went through. You see where you were then, what you thought about then, how you handled things then. Then you look at a new challenge coming at you. You're simply older.
Right.
The only problem you have by being older is that you want to bring in all this experience about what you can do, but you don't know what the future's bringing.
Right.
That information is almost a handicap to you if you fall back on it too much. You know what I mean? Open that brain up a little bit, man. Start reaching for things that's going to get you settle on things that you already know to keep you standing where you are. So for me, it's like, man, Corona and 65 years old, turning this year, looking for a vaccination and waiting for some good time to roll. And put you in that shell, brother.
Right.
Put you in that shell in that corner. Have you trying to do things to survive.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is my man, my friend, Mr. 5-time Olympia champion. The quiet storm has spoken, and the storm has settled. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Vince Taylor, for being on the Andre The Beast Show. Hey, Vince, make sure you come back and let's do it again, okay?
My pleasure. Like I said before, my brother, all about that you.
It's all about the you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Andre The Beast Show.